Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Getting High podcast. Today we are going into episode 9 of my podcast. This week I'm by myself again just because, uh, again, it's been a busy couple weeks and I figured I'd do this and experiment with this at least for 2 weeks and see how it goes. Um, so, yeah. So, this week I'm just going to be going over my understanding of esports and my gripes with it, especially now that I'm kind of thinking about going on my way out, but not fully committed to it yet. But I just want to give my 2 cents on kind of how everything's been and how everything's kind of fallen. Not necessarily in a bad way, but and also some pretty good ways as well. So first, I want to go over a little bit of my coaching experience, as I feel like that's a really important piece to this entire thing. So I've been a coach for 4 years now. 2.5 of those years were from swimming, and the other year and a half has been from Overwatch. So I have a wide variety of experiences, and I've worked with pretty much every single type of person from like the age of, I think it was like the youngest person I ever coached was like 6, and then the oldest person I coached was like 25, I believe. Um, so I have a lot of experience dealing with a lot of people and a lot of different people at different ages. So um, I've had a lot of experience with this stuff. So for the most part, I do know what I'm talking about. And I do want to kind of preface a lot of this with that just because a lot of people might be like, all right, well, he's he's 21. Yeah, I'll be 21 at this point by the time this goes out. So he's 21 and like he doesn't know what he's talking about. I've been coaching for 4 years. I trust me, I know what I'm talking about. I've had a lot of thought and introspection on everything that's kind of gone on. So I do know what I'm talking about for the most part. Um, and so that's kind of where I want to start off with. The next thing I want to talk about is like understanding the role of a coach because I feel like in esports a lot of people don't understand the role of being a coach because being a coach in traditional sports and what it should be in esports is you should really be that leadership figure. You should be an influence on the people's lives that you're coaching, and you should absolutely be someone that they look up to. Um, and you can have all of the in-game expertise, you can have all of the stroke technique expertise as well, but if you don't have that interpersonal skill and if you don't have that control of like if you're not able to control your audience with like an overall positive message, I really don't think you're doing your job right. And I've seen and kind of experienced a handful of coaches that just really haven't done that yet. Whether that just be an age thing, whether that be like an experience thing, I do think that there's a little piece there that they could take their coaching to the next level, right? I don't think just being a good Overwatch coach is just knowing the game because anyone could do that. Like anyone could just sit down, watch the game, really go in and try and understand it, and at that point, you're basically your job is kind of pointless, right? And so, but not everyone can be a leader. Not everyone can be that influence on someone's life and be a role model for people and be that just overall person that they can go to um, when they're having issues and stuff like that. And something that I take a lot of pride in is like, even as a swim coach, I was someone people could go to. Um, Granted, a lot of the swimmers already knew me because I was on the team as a swimmer before, but even then, a lot of people knew they could go to me. And even going into Overwatch on the last 2 teams that I coached, I felt like people could just go to me, and they could talk to me. And I feel like sometimes that's just not the case with other people. Um, and I also think another big thing is understanding the importance of your tone. Um, I have a little bit more of an experience with this just because I have coached from the age of 6 to 25. That's a 19-year difference. And so I know that younger people typically need a little bit more of a softer tone. Understand that a couple of older people can have, like, I can have a more serious tone. Um, but it's also understanding the balance of it too. because if you're gonna be a hard ass the entire time, like I kind of was my first year of coaching, you're really not gonna get a whole lot of respect, and you're not really gonna get a whole lot of support from the people that you're coaching. And so like you need to be able to balance it out with fun, and I think that balance is really important, and understanding how to balance that, and understanding that your words do matter. You are a leader for that team. You're a leader for whoever. And I think that if you are going to be a leader, you also need to choose your words carefully. If you're not going to choose your words carefully, you could say the wrong thing, hurt someone's feelings, and potentially burn a bridge that you don't really want to burn. So yeah. Um, Overall, that's like the big coaching things that I want to talk about. Just because, obviously, I was a coach. I have a lot of years of coaching under my belt, and that's something that I've really enjoyed for the past 4 years, and it's something that I still want to do. Just not sure how I can do it with all of the dude mode stuff. So, you know, I'm kind of in a weird spot right now with that, but I think whatever advice I can give to any coach out there, whether you see this podcast or like maybe someone sends this to you, from whatever, or just gets recommended to you. I think these are good points for you to consider when going down that road, because coaching's not easy. Coaching will throw a whole lot of different issues at you, and you're going to have to think on the fly. You're going to have to think about what the best possible way to resolve an issue is in 5 minutes. And sometimes sometimes it's just you're not able to, even as a good coach, sometimes you're not able to. So it's going to throw a lot of difficult situations at you, and I think being prepared for that, and also having an understanding of what your role is as a coach, is really important. So let's move on from that a little bit, and let's talk about the importance of maturity in esports as a whole, because I'm moving away from a little bit from the coaching stuff right now, but I feel like right now, not only within players, because obviously gaming is inherently going to be geared towards younger people, and I get that, and inherently, because those younger people haven't had the same life experiences, they're not going to be as mature. So I do take that in consideration when talking about this, but there's also some organization things that people need to understand. So I think the first thing is, in an organization, you need to understand the lines of communication, whether that be you as a player, you as like a swimmer, whatever, you as the athlete, the competitor. You need to understand, if you have issues, where you need to be able to go. If you're having issues within a team, if you have coaches that you know can resolve things, go to the coaches, right? If you have people, if it's even above that, go to a manager, right? But throughout all of this, make sure you're communicating with the people that you need to be communicating with, because if you go around them, if you don't really communicate with them, if you even go to like a third party, it's absolutely gonna make you look strange. It's gonna look weird on you, just because you didn't go through the proper channels of communication, and that you just need to understand that there are for the most part, for most teams, if they're run and managed well, there will be proper channels of communication, and whether that be on the players to recognize that, the athletes, the competitors to recognize that, or if it's on that management to like just state specifically, all right, if you have an issue, go here, here, then here, right? And I think both are fine solutions, but everyone just needs to be on top of that, and everyone needs to be on the same page about that. On top of that, when it comes to, wait, what am I doing? I'm looking at notes. Sorry, my camera's over here. My notes are on my other monitor, so I'm just like looking at what my notes are. So yeah, that's basically it. And also being able to communicate with your teammates. That's a big thing with communication, and a big thing with maturity. Um, I know on my first Overwatch team that I coached, there was a player that did not get along with me, um, because they were benched, and because there was a 12-man roster, and they weren't up to the same level, but we were able to have that 12-man roster, right? Um, they weren't a fan of me, never really talked to me about it, went around me and just completely just didn't. Basically, we weren't able to have the conversation about what was going wrong, and how we could improve it. Same goes for teammates. If they had an issue with a teammate, they'd go around them, wouldn't talk to them, and the situation would never get better. Um, so just make sure you communicate, because in my mind, communication is a big mark of whether you're mature or not. If you can't have a conversation with people about what's bothering you, you're just not at that level yet. You're not at that level of maturity that is really required for you to be at if you want to keep moving up in esports. Or just in sports in general, or life in general. You need to be able to have these conversations if there's something that's bothering you. Um, because then if you don't, you're going to leave places, you're going to leave teams, you're going to leave organizations on a sour note, and just because people couldn't communicate. Um, so that's my whole bit on maturity and stuff. Um, now comes more specifically towards Overwatch and the open division scene. And this take may be stupid, I guess. I don't know. But this is just how I see it, from someone who's only in it for like a handful of months. Um, but when it came to scrims, and when it came to practicing and stuff, I could tell that some people were just team hopping. And within swimming, I'm going to give a little bit of background as to why I use that phrase, team hopping. If you hopped from team to team just to like try and get short-term quick results, you were considered a team hopper, and just socially, like, that was frowned upon, because a lot of people valued teams, and valued the teams that and the organization and the environment that those teams uh, built. And if they just didn't, and some people who team hop just didn't value that, and so ultimately, like, within team hoppers wouldn't make as much friends, parents wouldn't make as much friends on those teams. And so genuinely, I think that should be like kind of another social norm for esports. If you're hopping teams, you have a very individualistic approach to the game, right? Which means I don't think that you are going to really learn how to build up teamwork with other people. You're not going to learn how to communicate. You're not going to learn how to do a lot of the things that are necessary to do to get better, right? And I don't think that team hopping is really a good idea. Like, obviously, Hive Minds has disbanded, right? So people are going to leave the organization. People are going to leave the team because they have to, right? But when it comes down to it, like, if your team isn't disbanding, but you randomly get another offer and you just leave your team, I don't think that's a good. I think you're actually hurting the scene more than you're helping, and you're hurting yourself in the long term more than you're helping yourself as well. Um, because, like, in reality, you don't. You what you're doing essentially is making coaches, uh, and a lot of the stuff that I talked about before. That's not just knowing the game and not teaching the game, of like being a role model and all that stuff. You're making that role model part obsolete, and that's why a lot of coaches now don't work on being a role model. They don't work on being a leader, because the environment and those social norms of it are not there, right? Because there's if your team's just gonna if half of your players are just gonna leave in the middle of a season, or in the middle of like after one difficult time, then you're really not going to get any value out of doing all those things. So to the coaches, I do understand it a little bit, but also, like, a lot of it is the environment. A lot of it is the social norms of open division, and just people thinking for themselves. Um, But yeah, uh, I think that's about it. I think that's all I want to cover with that. Just team. I think team hopping and thinking just for yourself is in general you're just hurting um, the entire scene, and you're not allowing it to grow as fast as it could. And you can disagree with me if you want to. You can agree with me if you want to, but that's how I see it. And that's how I probably will see it for the foreseeable future. And you're likely not going to change my mind. Um, so yeah. Um, Now I want to talk about like specific things that I've run into that I really just didn't like. And this may upset some people, but you have to. I just want to put my perspective out there. If the other people want to put their perspectives out there, I think that's fine. Um, and I'm more than willing to hear people out on this. But there's also some things that like it just kind of confused me, and it kind of threw me for a loop, and I wasn't really expecting it. And this is within like organizations and specific individuals that I'm not going to name names because I don't want to tarnish their careers, especially if they're going to keep going, and I'm going to start taking a step back. But I do want to acknowledge that there are some individuals and there are some organizations that like at least organization structures that I just didn't jive with. Um, so yeah, I think the first thing that I want to go over is the fact that there's too many teams and not enough support staff. Um, and in reality, I think overall, like I'm really happy that there's a lot of people who want to be playing Overwatch, and I'm really happy that there's a lot of teams, but there's really not enough support staff to go around to really make the scene really thrive. Because even on Hive Minds, we had, I think, when everything finally settled down, I think we started with 4 coaches, and when everything settled down, we were down to 2. Um, and uh, it was just a matter of like there's just not enough support staff. Even when I was coaching the team prior, before Hive Minds, it was I think I was the only coach for 23 people, 24 people, and uh, no, it was like 22 people. But even then, like one person for 22 people across 2 rosters is absolutely insane. Like that's way too much work for one individual to do, and I would absolutely encourage more people to get into it. But I also think that some teams, if you're not really able to get coaching, obviously there's going to be teams that are playing for fun, and I get that. But if you're playing to be competitive and you're not able to get a staff that's able to like support you and do all of that, I don't think that you should really be. I don't think those teams should really be like together fully, just because you're not really going to get a whole lot from it. And ultimately you're kind of hurting yourself, and maybe it might even be better for you to, as a player, to go and play as a sub. And I know that's kind of weird to say right after I'm like, oh, like individualistic mentality, but at some point you do have to have some individual focus, yeah, obviously, because it's your life, it's your career potentially, so I do get that. But I just think there's just too many teams. And just not enough support staff because, yeah, coaching 22 people by yourself is kind of shit. Not gonna lie. Um, so yeah, I think not. I think, but the next thing I want to talk about as well is young team management, and I don't want to throw shade at the people who are young. I'm not going to throw shade at Arrow because he's 17. I'm not going to throw shade at a lot of the younger people at the team prior. But ultimately, a lot of my issues came down to just people like not really being old enough to see like long term for a specific team, and they're not able to be mature enough to interact with the staff. Um, and so when it came to Hive Minds, I when it came to your staff, I guess, was it mainly came down to that sort of individualistic thing that I talked about before. Because as Arrow was the owner of the Hive Minds brand and the Hive Mind organization, they ended up moving on to a contenders opportunity, and that is why the team disbanded. As well as another individual was moving to a tier 2 opportunity as well. So, like, I understand the other person's perspective just because they weren't within the whole organization's staff. But if you're a team owner and you're disbanding it for your own personal reasons, it's just kind of, especially after all of the talk that was going on of like building the brand, bringing on content people, and a whole lot of other things, and like making content, making a podcast, all that stuff. When you talk about that 1 week, you disappear for 2 weeks, and then you come back and say, I'm done. Like, this will be our last OD season. That rubbed me the wrong way. And I'll fully admit that. Granted, I know Arrow's a good guy. And I'm not trying to slander him. I'm not trying to hurt who he is. And I'm not trying to hurt his career. I think he's a great guy. I think he's been doing a great job managing teams. I think he's doing a phenomenal job at that. Especially promoting those teams as well on social media. He's done a lot of great things. It's just like, that always sticked out. I can't fucking speak English. That always stuck out in my mind is kind of weird. Just because you're a young individual who has a team that has a lot of potential, and you understand that this organization has a lot of potential to grow, and suddenly, without really consulting anyone within the organization, I felt like it was just given up on. And I felt like the Hive Minds organization with some time could have grown to be something bigger. Honestly, I do. But unfortunately, that'll never happen. And that'll never come into fruition, unfortunately. So, yeah, and I think that just comes down to being young. You know, you see an opportunity, you jump at it, right? But I just don't. It's just hard to be like super happy with how everything ended. Unfortunately, granted, I'm still, right as of right now, as of recording this, I'm still on good terms with Arrow. I'm still on good terms with everyone within the staff, as far as I'm aware. And I do appreciate everything that they've done for me, but that was like a big thing that I had to talk about, really. And I know I said I wasn't going to say names, but that was something that kind of just came up because he was a team owner. And then when it comes to the other team, because, both teams have had their, like, I don't want to say issues because it wasn't issues with Hive Minds, but it was an issue with the other team. Like, not understanding the importance of your role and, like, your impact, I guess. Because, if you're, the situation with the other team was, I was kind of on my way out, and I kind of knew that, and everyone kind of knew that I was on my way out, right? But I was still kind of there. I was still kind of just hanging around. I was still there. But one of the members, because it was a school and because it was a organization, one of the members of the Student Athletic Association, who was recently promoted to that position, because of their impact and because of their involvement in sports within the school, as well as esports as well, didn't really know how to interact, didn't really understand the changes, I guess, that kind of come with your interactions with at the time, just member of a former staff member, I guess, because again, I was on my way out, and I was like in Discord. I was like, the best way to kind of put it was like it was a manhunt for me, I guess, because of something small that kind of came up, and they didn't understand that tone does not travel well through text. I think if you don't understand that, then you clearly either haven't texted enough or you have been living under a rock. because like really, you tone does not travel well over messages, as well as they had a friend who kept pestering me and pestering me and pestering me about a decision that I made. And not even that I made, but a decision that was made by someone else. And for whatever reason, I was the target of whatever harassment that came. And they didn't understand that, you need to tell your friend to back off, because the issue wasn't to do with the school, right? There wasn't an issue with the school, and any of that. And on top of that, it was just weird to have them kind of pile on as well a little bit and not recognize that clearly after one message of mine that was very clearly frustrated with the entire situation. As in all, when you send a message in all caps, typically people can tell that you're shouting. That's what that means. And I did not use friendly language at all. So it was clear that I was upset, and they just kept going for, I think it was like 10, 15 more minutes, and I finally got frustrated. Understand your role within an organization. Understand that you should still respect someone even if they're not a part of your staff anymore, especially if you grew up in the same town as them, you know them from high school, you know them from growing up with them. You should understand that you should still show them respect, because of everything that not only just everything that I did for them and everything that I was able to get them to do as players and as a team, but also just because that should be general work practice anyways, unless you burn bridges on your way out because you're frustrated. So it just depends. But it was overall just, it was a sour note to leave on. And it came down to them just being too young and not understanding the importance of their role, to bring that full circle. I think another thing that I want to talk about is teams not encouraging people to make their own content, like players to make their own content. Like obviously it's difficult, but eventually your role as a player will end. It will come to an end, and it will come to an end a lot sooner than you think it will. Just because, especially in gaming, there's always going to be someone better. There's always going to be someone younger, and eventually you're going to be phased out because your reaction time is going to get slower and all of that. And I think it is important to have, especially if you want to stay within an organization, especially if you want to stay within esports or the whole overall arching internet kind of scene or industry, it is good to build a brand for yourself. And I feel like that wasn't really pushed, and that really hasn't been pushed on either team that I've been on. And I think it's really important that, people start building their own brands, especially if they want to stay within this sort of industry, because to stay relevant is really difficult, but it's a lot easier if you have a brand. Whether that just be streaming, YouTube, whatever you want to do to build your brand, it is important that you do so. Overall, that's something that I would absolutely encourage, is just people playing, people encouraging that their players start to build their brands, even if they're young, even if they're going to keep growing and keep getting better. I think building a brand for yourself is extremely important. And we've seen it with Optic Gaming, we've seen it with FaZe, we've seen it with what else? 100 Thieves. We've seen it with a lot of these organizations that have gotten really big and really popular, that their big thing is encouraging content creation, because that's what's allowed a lot of people to continue to be relevant and continue to be entertainers and stay within the industry and keep their friends really close. So again, content creation, really, really big. I think the last part about all of this, about all I don't want to say negative, but all of the critiques and all of that with esports is there's absolutely a fear of speaking out. I know that I was really anxious to do this episode, and I know that it wasn't an easy decision for me to make, to just make this episode and record it, but I do think it's important, and I do think that it's important for everyone to to be able to say and communicate about what's been bothering them, even if it's after the fact. I still think it's important, because right now, absolutely, when I upload this and people see this and people don't like it, my career as a coach could be ended. My career as a coach could be completely over, and I'm fully, then I'd my only online presence would really be this podcast plus dude mode stuff. And so that could absolutely happen right now, and I don't think in reality it's fair, because I think overall my gripes and what I've said today are fairly reasonable. I think everything that I've said, a lot of people have agreed with, but they're not going out with it, and they're not saying it 100%. So I think it's important that, people speak up, especially if there's issues. People need to speak up and not be afraid to really say that they've had issues with an individual, with an organization, with whatever, and not be able to have their career ended. Especially for women, I think that's absolutely absurd, because I've met a handful of individuals that are female that do just as good of a job as the guy does, but if they speak out, they have a higher chance of losing their career because of it, and there's a higher chance of them losing their whatever because they spoke out, and because that's how the industry is. I think we just need to be I think we need to be more inclusive, and B, I think we need to also just make an environment where we can speak out, and make an environment that we can open up about issues that are pretty important, in my eyes. So yeah. So enough about the negative stuff. I do want to say, I have had an amazing time as a coach, even if my career as a coach is over after this goes up, but hopefully it's not. Fingers crossed. But yeah, I think hopefully, everything goes well, and I've been able to meet an amazing amount of people, who are just absolutely phenomenal, absolutely fantastic. If you can hear my dog barking in the background, I'm sorry. I can't control that right now because I'm in here recording, but I've met numerous people that have absolutely been really important in my life. I've met some amazing people that have just really encouraged me to do coaching and to follow what I want to follow. I met the people from Dude Mode, from Esports, and so I think it's been a really great opportunity for me. It's allowed me to get that competitive drive back, whether that be through competing or through coaching. And it's really been an amazing opportunity for me, and I really do enjoy esports. At the end of the day, I think esports is really on its way up, and I think esports has a lot of potential, and I think overall esports is going places, but there's obviously some things that need to be worked out first. But yeah, so if you made it this far, I know this is a little bit longer than the last episode. It's probably 15 to 20 more minutes longer. But thank you for watching. If you have made it this far, I do appreciate you making it to this point. So if you do like it, please leave a like down below. If you want to see more episodes like Getting High Podcast, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You get notifications when everything goes live. As of right now, I'm going to be focusing a lot of my attention towards Dude Mode. So if you want to go check out the link in the description below, the links I should say in the description below, it'll have all the Dude Mode social media. It'll have the channel as well. So yeah, go check that out, because that's where I'm going to be putting a lot of my focus towards in the foreseeable future. And by foreseeable, I see like 2 months. I can really only see that far ahead right now. with what I'm working on. Thank you for starting your lawnmower as I'm closing out. I also realized that I hadn't posted any of my social media in the description below, so go check out all that stuff. I promote a lot of dude mode stuff, so if you haven't seen that yet, I do have a lot of stupid tweets, so if you want to go check those out as well, they'll be in description. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.